Okay. Right. Oh, yes, man. Okay, we'll just loosen up a little bit. Great, just shaking out the wrists, hands. Move it out to the sides. Working a little bit with a circle, some height circle. Great, let's swing the arms from the shoulders to the back. Just go front and back a little bit. Shift it. The body swing with the arms. Great, just take 1 foot forward and just play with, just kind of swinging the body, get front and back. Just let the arms kind of follow. Just feel the weight shift through the legs. Mostly. Nice and loose with the upper body. Just very fast sides. Left and right. Good. Right. Yeah, perfect. Good. Yes, that's great. Yes. We'll take it a little bit side to side. Okay, good. Now you're just going to play with the shift in the front and back and side to side, which obviously is going to take you into a circle. Just play with it, especially be careful around the back. And give the upper body real freedom to move around and the arms to kind of come all the way down. And come up to the top as well. Nice and easy to start. So good. And just kind of cycling the body around, the upper body. Just really listen to what's happening in the feet, how the weight's being shifted, how the body's trying to find a pathway into the ground. It's kind of balancing. And then taking this into a rotation. So just now give the lower body a bit more freedom. So let the feet kind of come out of the ground. Or the heels come out of the ground. Nice loose rotation. And especially now giving the hips freedom to kind of fold and move inside the rotation. Good. Great, and then putting these three together. So you've got the rotation, the side to side movement, and the front to back, which goes into these kind of movements where you're kind of coiling up, coiling down. I think in these cases, either taking something to the ground in a kind of coil or in a spiral, or picking something up out of the ground, but just work with a sense of finding the ground through the kind of pathway of the body. Give yourself freedom in all the joints to just explore these kind of patterns. And take it all the way to the ground if you want. That's it. Great. Good. Okay, good. Just introduce now into this a sense of the, in a way you're going into inside outside, so opening and expanding, or in this case really like closing or opening the body up. What you want to think about in this case is like if you're working with a person or you're working with a thing, an object. The first one is in a sense like drawing it into the body, basically bringing it into the feet. So something like this kind of movement where you're really kind of closing down, pushing down. And then the opposite side of that opening out is a sense like when we're doing projection work, so like really opening out to the back. So obviously you've got two sides to the kind of movements. You can do this with all the techniques as well. So you can think about ikkyo kind of closing down. But you can also think about ikkyo kind of opening out, kind of projecting away. So sometimes we're kind of projecting, sometimes we're kind of controlling down with it, but just play with body movement, not necessarily technique. But obviously, it's going to start to come out and move. So. Yeah. Great. Okay, so we'll work with first just with like a tan henko position. So give the hips freedom, move around a little bit with it, but you're just playing now with basically landing the weight through it and expanding out through it. So move around, and then just find a kind of enter into it. And just find yourself in this kind of nice wide extended position. The open out, move into it. Drop into it. Drop into it. Yeah, and normally because we're working this movement with the rotation, the tendency is to be kind of in the front of it and then try and get to the back of it. So we're usually practicing the movement by actually coming to these kind of positions and then landing. Play with this in a sense where you're just going to kind of step out. So a little bit like when we do the first 𝒊𝒏𝒈. So you really want to emphasize in this case the back leg's grounded, and then you're just going to kind of, as if you're kind of squeezing the movement out, as if you're kind of pressing out. What you don't want to do in this case is like land it and then settle the hips. So I have the sense that the hips are kind of going underneath it, and the hands just going to kind of place in with it. Play with the hands as well, so you can do them up and drop into it. But the key in this one is just that sense of as if you're kind of squeezing the movement out of the back hip, so that you're fully in the ground and stepping out with it. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Great, and then now play with basically you're going to ground the front hip and then think about pressing back into it. So you're kind of pressing, now the body is going backwards. So you want to feel like as if you're pushing a wall behind you with the whole body. So it's less about this in the front, but much more about the back of the body in the sense of, again, kind of pressing your hips underneath the ground. So as if you want to press the body right below beneath the ground. And you can do this with like a back step. And you can also play this just starting to go into a rotation with it. But just have that sense again of the hips kind of rolling underneath the motion. Underneath. Now going away from staying with the hips, but now think really about the connection into the hands. So the hips and the hands really working together. So we're going to go into Jo later today. But just work with this feeling that you're trying to communicate the hip work through the hands. And then later you're trying to communicate that to the Jo. And then partner work, obviously you're trying to communicate to the partner. So in solo work's actually the best place to train it because you're just training. Empty hand solo work's a good place to train it because I'm just focusing on the connection, hips to hands as you do it. So go now fully into the kind of rotation movement, but really keep that sense as you go through all the movement. The hip and the hand basically communicating to each other, and the hips basically taking the lead with it. So the hip takes the movement, and the hands are basically following it. Just trying to get the sense that every part of the movement's being guided from the hip to the hand. Yeah, good. So perfect. Nice. Great. Great. And then when you've got the sense of coordination, you want to start working with weight. So it's the same with the Joe. Once I've got the movement kind of coordinated, I want to start to think about kind of pressing the weight of the body through it. You start to increase the kind of power of the movement, but not through kind of increasing speed, increasing strength in the movement, just through the fact that the connection becomes a little bit deeper, or a little bit thicker. So think about now the sense of dropping the center into the movement. So you've got now a sense of weight dropping in. And again, the same way you would do with the Joe, the sense of weight dropping into the movement. So again, you want to communicate that weight of the body to the hand. Just think about, a sense of weight passing through it, and then keeping it as you find the rotation. That's the kind of hard part of this movement. Getting the weight, keeping it through the rotation. Okay, so work with the movement. That's really like the 𝒂𝒐𝒍𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 the first one's this spread out, so you shift the weight down, spread the hands, and then the second one's with the rotation coming in the hip, stepping through, pressing down with the hands. So again, just first coordinating the hands and the feet, get the hands working together with the feet, and then through it. You want to sense that you've got the, in a way, like the sense again of splitting the sword work. So a lot of sword work last week. Just get that sense of the hands and the sword together, splitting out and then cutting through. Yeah, and again, the key with this one is the sense of getting the hip work into the hand. So in this case, you're working with this kind of splitting motion with the movement. Really think that movement's coming from the hip. So just play with a sense, it's as if you're really pulling apart the hands with the movement. So what I don't want to do with this one especially, if you come into technique, is like that kind of movement, where I'm basically pulled out of the body. So get a sense that as you do this, you've got the hands kind of together and you're going to really like pull them apart with the body. Yeah, it goes this kind of inside-outside movement. Try and feel that the movement's got a quality where it's spreading out from the inside. And that movement's going to come primarily for us from the hip out. So that sense of splitting them out. And then you basically just hold it as you come in. And take it to the ground, pressing through. But just get that sense of pulling apart the hands from the hips. So this is really a koku movement. And Tenchinagi is a classic koku nage. It's got that sense of real spiral work and breath work through it. That's so nice.
Michael?
Yeah, sure.
Does, within the TAE syllabus, because Tenchinagi isn't referred to explicitly, would it be classed from a grading syllabus point of view as just another kokanagi?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I was class it. I mean, it's kind of strange because you've got all these like hundreds of kokinagi techniques with no names, and then you've got this one with Tenchinagi has a name. So it's like I always include it in terms of teaching, in terms of the kokinagi section. It's just a classic one. It's a really classic kokinagi. So yeah, I will include it with the kokinagi. Something like Good. Yeah, and then I get that same idea of working with weight. What you want to think about now, if you do this in the basic, obviously it changes when you go into the kinonagari, but you want to have a sense, if I'm the partner in this case, this hand that comes up, you're basically going to use it to pinch against the body. So what you're looking for straight away in this move is to take them out of the structure and also trap them in the structure. So you're again, what you're looking to do in the hands, the sense of splitting the hands, you're also looking to split the palm. So you're looking to basically ground them down and start to draw the structure up, and then you continue it through the throat. So what that means basically in this sense, when we're doing it solo work, is think about that pressure down, and also this pressure is also going up, but also with a sense that you're closing onto the body. So it's got a sense here that this is going to go onto the body, and you can use this like a strike basically. So the sense when it's close, you've got a sense the body drops in. This comes up and also kind of lands on the person. So you basically want to create this effect on the person. So the system gets trapped and then they can't cope with that next movement which comes through. So just play again. It's mostly the sense of weight. Again, it's going to come from the hip. And it's got a special flavor in this case because you've got that heaven earth kind of movement. So you've got the Tenchinagi. One's grounding down and one's really like raising up and pressing in. And they're acting together on the person to basically pull them out of their own body. Great. So we just finished by putting those two together. So play now with the Tainenko into the tenchinai. So you've got this move, make it a little bit flowing. Yeah. So you've got the tenchinai, and then you take the step out, take the step in this way. But again, think about all those points, especially this sense of dropping weight through the movement. Weight. So all the time you've got a kind of expression out from the hip work of the ground, and including that your own sense of applying the center to it, applying the whole body through the movement. So just play with it. And can into it. And nice. Okay, good. Yeah, and in a way, it's kind of worthwhile going back. If you go to these kind of kinnagai things, it's going back to this kind of, not in a way, it's a kind of progression. And it's in a way like the way the Japanese teach. They will teach basically the feet and hand movement. And then we go to the idea of coordinating the whole body behind it. And then this idea of pressing weight into the kind of movement, or basically working with the center. They talk about applying the center. So go back to the idea, what happens now with the kinnagai is the feet and the hands start to separate. So I go into this and the feet start to kind of lead the movement, rather than actually the sense that the hands and the feet are communicating to each other. So then I end up with the movement that's like, so the hands are basically legs with the movement. So again, go back to this idea first of hands and feet really communicating. So obviously the feet take precedence in terms of the hand, in terms of the connection. So the feet are leading the movement, but really get a sense that the hands are really connecting straight into it. So this is why like the resistance band training is kind of good as well, because you can basically train the hands and the feet to lead each other. So just play now with keeping it fluid, but really keeping that hand-foot connection. That's it. All right, perfect. Take a Joe. We'll go on to the little bit more. So we'll just start with this kind of rolling movement with the hips. So obviously this has a lot of functions to it. What I want to focus on, especially we're looking at hands and feet, just listen to the connection as you take the hands out through it. Just listen to what's happening in the feet. So obviously you're not moving the feet with the hands, but you want to have a sense that the feet are actually connecting into this movement. The main thing I want to avoid in this movement is just the arms, basically tossing out the movement. So really get a sense that it's driven by the hip through the connection to the ground. And it usually means, in this case, in my case especially, slowing down the movement and really taking your time to figure out what's actually happening in it. And especially in those connection movements. Good. Yeah. So see, like hands and feet is a really important connection. The big connection for us obviously is the hips, and in this case, just link it with the shoulders. So imagine the connection really across here. What you don't want to do in this case, obviously, this move especially is good for this because it's basically pulling you out of the structure this way. So really think about now, you don't want to split, work the same side connection. You don't want to split the shoulder out from the hip. In this case, going somewhere like this. Somewhere like this, which is basically I'm pulling the structure out. So really think now in terms of this structure, the shoulders dropping into the hips through that movement, drop into the hips. So let the arm cast the movement out, but don't, the shoulder's not kind of throwing itself out. So just again, think about this connection as you go through it. So you get a slight rotation with the body. Really think about now the shoulders dropping on top of the hips all the time. It's as if you're stacking the shoulders and the hips on top of the hips. And again, this is where the head's really important for this connection, because if you play with this, if you drop the head into it, automatically the shoulders get pulled forward. It's almost impossible to keep that connection. So while that position, the head's really kind of crucial, keeping a sense of length, that sense of being pulled up to the top of the ceiling. The head. Secondary effects is you can open up the vision, you can see a lot more. Gives you a bit more of an open movement. Right, and just start now playing with the feet, just transferring the weight to the feet. But yeah, think especially now about this connection with the shoulder. So if I have a tendency to throw the shoulder out, this is really going to exaggerate it. So work with the feet moving, keeping the shoulders in alignment with the hips. So, that's good. We're just going to play now with opening it out. So it's a little bit like you would do the Hassa movement, but it's like a shorter movement. So you're just spread out a little bit from the center, and just play now. Give the hands freedom to move on the jo. So you've got that kind of movement. You can think obviously this is going later into kind of jo kind of movements. You've got a little bit now more space with the shoulders. Could also help to open the shoulders, but settle them down as well. So just play with again the feet, working the hips together with the shoulders, coordinating the hands and the feet together. So just give the hands a little bit more freedom to move on the jab. So. Right, and obviously what the weapon work now, or the weapon allows us to do is the sense of extending your feeling out, so that your feeling doesn't just stop at the hands, but can be extended out into something, into another object. So what I want you to think about now is the ends of the jaw. So as you do, you've got this movement, this is coordinating from the hips, from the body. Think about now the feeling basically passing out, and just pick one end at a time. So you've got obviously got these kind of movements we're doing with the top of the jaw, and these movements you're kind of doing the back of the jaw. Think about like 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 or any kind of striking movement, but just think about now, pick an end of the jaw during the movement. Can be the back end, can be the front end. The great thing about the jaw is you can switch both ends. You can really be flexible with where you are. It's one of the limits with the sword work, because it's got a blade. We'll primarily focus on the blade end, so the jaw is great for being able to switch your intention flexibly in the jaw. Okay. No, it's nice. Good. Good. Perfect. Okay, so we'll take it into the full hand position with the jaw into a ski position. So I just want to now just focus on the tip of it. So Adrian's got this spear, so it's a really great tool to focus your intention down to the tip of the jaw. I just want to think about two movements. Think about blocking movements through this, and think about thrusting movements through it. So we'll just kind of mix them in together. And obviously you've got a whole range of motions with this. You've got low blocks, you've got high skis, you've got all these kind of movements. You've got these blocks which are rising blocks. But they all basically, I'm going to focus me on this side of the jaw. So just play with, again, the body's really behind the jaw. Just want to start working with a thrust coming out of it. So just play with the kind of combination. Block, thrust, change, block, thrust, change, block, thrust, change, whoosh. Great, just start to expand this a little bit now so that you include the striking movement. So especially thinking now about Shomanuchi and Yokumen, bringing these kind of slides in. So opening the kind of the variations in the movements, but keeping that sense of working with the tip of the jo. So if you imagine you've got a spear, or you actually have a spear, imagine you keep that connection out right through the tip. Just feel free to play with these kind of movements left and right. And the kata are some great examples. So if you're kind of stuck, for example, movements from the 13, from the 31, these are really classic examples for us that we've got in the system. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we'll take it into the last two subgroups of the 19 and 20. And these are classic examples again of using the sending intention out to the front of the jo, and also with the sense of going and blending into blocking movements, blocking position, and then continuing the motion. So we'll just work straight in 1920 and just work first with a nice clean basic. So you've got the backwards raise to the top, pressing in. All the strikes now are yokumen. So you've got yokumen to the back for the block, into the second yokumen, the third coming into 20, exchange, revolve back, and you're finishing with a ski at the end. Back, strike a point it in, rotate, finding the block, strike, another yokumen. Perfect. Again, just go back to this connection of the hips to the shoulders. And again, the weapon's great for this, especially the jaw because of its length. And these kind of movements, which are really kind of throwing you out of the structure. Naturally, your body wants to pull out. So, especially now with the 𝒂𝒂𝒿, practice going from, especially in these movements, from this to the next move. Just watching this case. If I'm kind of thrown out of balance through this movement, or I send the movement to the shoulder first, end up with these kind of movements. So the body will kind of go around itself. So go to the idea of right into a still position, really find that position, and then get a sense that you're moving from the core of the body into that kind of movement. So you want the core, think about the tiny hinko movement, the sense of rotating in from the core into that position. And then the same coming out of it, rotate into the core. This second one as well, it's got that same kind of feeling. If I go to the arms, it's going to pull me out. So really look for sense of using the ground through the center of the body. You feel like you're moving right from the inside first. Inside first. Inside first. Inside first. Inside first. And the best way to do it is focus on the hips. And then you're also looking at the connection with the shoulders. Very good.
Okay, Michael, thanks a lot. Thank you. See you later, guys.
Okay, perfect. We'll take this into a kindergarten movement. So just looking at the first 19 transition, 20 is a little bit trickier, a little bit different. So just play now with the feeling. You want to go from the 𝒂𝒂𝒿, this movement straight into the strike this way. So just play with this idea now of feeding off the strike and taking it into that rotation to the back. My shoulders kind of coming in. So really keep a sense here. Play with the starting position as well. Don't feel like you need to go to this very kind of pattern every time. Just think about sinking into it with the extension. And then if you can catch it with the hip work, you can send it through to the next movement. So, and obviously there's these kind of stages in between where you go into the movement here. But just see if you can go straight into the, you're looking for one smooth movement through it. So rolls through, rolls through. And this is the reason for it being a 𝒂𝒂𝒿, you're just going to follow the movement through to the next one. So you strike through it.
Thank you, Michael. See you
Thanks,
later.
Lena. Good. That's very nice, John. Good. Yeah, good. Okay, good. So you really want to find this middle place with this. So this is, again, it's really a testing movement. So there's two tendencies in this one. One is to kind of hold back and then go into the next one, which is fun, but it's pretty much the basic work. So the sense that I pull, so it's got a kind of go and then a go. And the other one is that I get totally pulled out by the movement. So which goes to something like this. I get pulled out with it. And then this. So just notice what your tendency is. If you're holding back, just play with this sense of just that. So you just want this feel that you can really let the jaw go. If you think about this movement we do with the bokken all the time, think about that and just letting it go this way. And actually the same for the kind of throwing out. The main thing is the basically holding the center with it. You don't want to throw out the body with the jaw this way. So just think about again where the movement's coming from. Those are being powered through the ground, through the hip to the hands, rather than the jaw leading the movement. So think that you're right in the middle of the movement, controlling. Nice, nice. That's it. This is a really worthwhile one as well. If you've got a heavy jaw, especially, try this with a really light, like a broom handle or something, and also like a short stick. So I use something like this, which is really light. So I just use this for that sense of being able to whip around it. So you really get a sense that you're using a lighter thing so that you can actually control the body a bit more. And then you're learning the mechanism to be able to do it with a heavy weapon. Obviously, heavy is harder. More weight, more structure, but that's usually why we're kind of going slow a lot of the time, because the weight's actually taking you out of the structure. If you go fast, good. But try going light is also a good idea.
It also implies that you have enough room to actually make this.
Yeah, right. That also helps. Yeah.
Otherwise, I have to do a lot of redecoration if I go with speed.
I'm just happy I have a reasonably high ceiling.
Yeah. Now, with this movement, it's not just the ceiling; it is also the wall, everything. So that's also why you see me moving backwards, because if I don't move backwards, I'll
destroy the house. Yeah, this is definitely a movement for outside. Perfect. We'll just finish one very slight variation on it. So if you've got the space, you can try this out. What you do now, rather than rotate into it and take the step, you're going to do this with a backwards move. So you think about now the rotation this way. So you're going to rotate into that front foot, and this is really like classic Tanhenko work. So you cut into it, find the rotation, and cut back with another one this way. So again, it's a little bit more challenging because the body's going in a different direction. In this case, backwards as you want to kind of project forward. So just play with this, but play with both of them. They've got a slightly different flavor, but the key to both of them again is the hip work, basically leading the movement, and in a way trying to keep the spine neutral, everything aligned through the movement. So just play with it last few. Open up movement back to it. And you can see Takemusu playing with these movements in this old video from like the 60s. He's in the field kind of playing with different saburi. That's nice. Yeah, great. And then again, last thing, again, you've got that sense of connecting the hands and the feet, connecting the whole body. And again, go to this idea of weight, actually passing weight through the end of the jo. So it's very easy now when you go to Kinnagai for this to become, well, kind of throw away and light. So really imagine that you're actually you're pressing through the jaw, but again, that weight's going to come from your body, not from throwing out into the weapon. So really think of where the weight's coming from, which is you, and the sense of you being able to drop the movement through the ground. So keeping the alignment, dropping into the ground, all of this comes together later. So the sense of adding weight into the strike with it. And we want Kinagai, which is also heavy. You've got a sense of pressure and movement. That's it. That's. There we go. One more. Good. And again, working with a lighter weapon can also really help this as well, because you've not got the weight of the weapon to rely on. So you have to generate it yourself in the movement. So that's also nice. Nice, very good. Great. Okay, we'll stop before we break everything. Okay, we'll go. Good. Okay. Great. どうもありがとうございました。
どうもありがとうございました。
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.